All right, let's get started. Are you a realtor who would like to get organized and run your business like a machine on autopilot? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Rams Agents Talk Real Estate, the training series for real estate agents, brokers, and realtors. Today's speaker is Patty Brannock, and the title of her talk is Stop Guessing, Start Systematizing. Consistency is king. How checklists can help you create a better experience. She will share her favorite memory checklists as well as time-saving checklists. Now, Patty started her love of real estate 30 years ago in commercial property management and sales. She also has an extensive experience in residential property management, and for the last 10 years has lived her passion helping people buy and sell homes. Today, she's going to share a tool that's helped her stay organized and create an efficient system. So for now, we're going to start the show, and please mute yourself until the end so we get a good recording. But do ask your questions in the chat. We will be doing a formal Q&A at the end of the talk. I'll look over there in your chat as well as allow anybody to unmute who would like to be live. So now for a great big welcome, please help me give a great big welcome to Patty Brannock.
Thank you, Mike. I'm happy to be here today. I love sharing things I'm passionate about, and this is something that I am passionate about. So today's talk is really all about streamlining your business with great, efficient systems and processes so you can go on vacation and everything will continue to move forward without you. And so what a novel concept, right? My mantra has been for years, consistency is king. And I really, really believe that. But how do we do that? And I'm going to share a quick story on a success I've had using checklists and good systems and processes. When I lived in the Pacific Northwest, I worked, like Mike said, I had about 500,000 square feet of office and industrial space and 2,500 multifamily units that I took care of. Moving to Oklahoma, there was a broker who was looking for someone just to manage his rental properties. And I thought, well, that'll be fun. And so I go over and get hired. And I learned right away he didn't have systems or processes. And there were zero checklists. And, you know, it was kind of like, oh, okay, you have a job. So here's your keys to a rental house and have a great time and bring your rent in every month. And so I started working on this for him. And I was a one-man show. So I developed basic systems and processes and checklists so that we could make sure everyone was being treated the same, that we were asking all the same questions, that everyone went through the exact same process for the rentals. And I worked on this over time, built from his 20 to about 50. We started to do a actual third-party management. Then there came a point where I needed to maybe add a leasing agent, someone to handle maintenance, brought that person in, had checklists that they could follow. And the goal being that anybody could sit at these desks and know where everything was in the process. So where was this application at? Where was this maintenance request at? And anybody could follow that. So we wanted something duplicatable. Like I said, I want to go on vacation and I want people to have free time, and we need to know where we are with all of our stuff. Well, over time, we had 100 properties. We had 150 properties. Eventually, I said, let's go and get this turned into an actual standalone company and break it off from your real estate company. And I'm going to explain why that was important. And we did that and added an accountant and added another person. And we didn't have to have a lot of people because we had such great systems and processes and checklists to keep everything moving. And we built this into, I think, it was about 325 rentals when over about 12 years, I decided it's good to go on its own. And I went ahead and I was a grandma and I left, and the company is still thriving today. So that was a success for me in really making sure that we had consistency, and consistency is king. And I'm going to talk about the checklist here in a second, but I wanted to just share a statistic with you real quick. I hear realtors talk sometimes that property management might just be easy peasy. Rentals are easy. You get an app, it doesn't have a lot to it. But that is something that if you really want to get into property management and rentals, you really need to think about it and really get with somebody who knows what they're doing, because I'm going to share, we all go through our fair housing stuff and we all do our thing. But in 2024, in the United States, there were 32,321 fair housing complaints filed. So it's still happening out there, even with all of the things we have to help us make sure that we are compliant and doing everything that we should. However, of that 32,000, 27,000 involved rental. There is a reason why you need to have those systems and processes for that element of real estate. Sales was 659, which I think, yay, salespeople. We're treating our sellers and buyers the way we should. And, I felt like that was really, an indication that in real estate, we're doing things right too. So, but I just wanted to share that, the rental market is still the biggest opening to a fair housing complaint. I have been involved in one directly. It was based on race and disability. And there's nothing more peaceful when an investigator comes into your office, asks you all the questions, and you present this beautiful file and open it up and show them live how consistent you are, and bring in a file not associated with that claim and show them how consistent you are. It's just a peaceful feeling. So that's where I developed that passion of being consistent. So let's talk about the checklist. So I'm going to share two today. All of our brokers have their audit sheets and the processes that they go through to make sure we're compliant with what they need. And I have found that I don't want to have to remember anything up here. I will forget every time. So I have checklists for anything I have to remember. I also have time-saving checklists that I use. And one of the ones that I use is very basic. So if I'm working with a buyer and we go show houses and we make an offer and we've got a contract, then I have what I call my buyer checklist. And it's one piece of paper. It has everything on it that I don't have to remember. I should have all of these documents anyway because I've been working with the buyer, but I'm not always going to remember to upload the MLS sheet. I'm not going to remember that kind of stuff. And I don't want to be the day of closing and I get a frantic email. We can't pay you until you upload the MLS sheet. Okay. So I have all of those things on here and I make sure I check them off, upload them. I'm done with my file. Hopefully the broker audit goes great. And it's just a basic one-page thing. I put it in my file. I've checked everything off and I'm done. I don't have to remember anything. It's all right here. Then I have what I call my time-saving checklist. This is one of my time-saving checklists. This is my listing appointment checklist. This checklist mirrors the Oklahoma listing agreement. Now, most of my sellers are doing electronic signature, but every now and then you get someone who wants to do a live signing, and that's great. But I put in here, if in-person signing, don't forget to take the seller disclosure because they have to fill that out themselves, and the property data form that I need to put it in MLS. So I make sure I don't forget those two documents. And then I still take this form because it's very easy to fill it out. It takes less than 10 minutes. And it gives you all the information you need for your listing agreement. I happen to have a seller right now I'm working with that lives in Australia. We went over this in less than 5 minutes and all my questions were answered. I was able to load it into my listing agreement. I didn't miss any blanks and I was done. I was ready to send off for signature. So I find checklists that mirror paperwork that have a lot of questions, just condense it and get it done get them answered, fill them in, and then when I send it off, I say, please double check and read the form and make sure I got everything right, because I always want a second set of eyes. So this has saved me a lot of time. When I developed this, I've got it all right here. And I have, similar to the buyer checklist, then I have my listing checklist also that I go through and make sure I upload all the documents, because I will forget tax records every time. So I make sure I've got that on here and I get everything uploaded for my broker and put it in my file and I'm done. Just saves me a lot of time. I also stay consistent when I'm talking to buyers and sellers. I want to make sure the first time I talk to a buyer or seller that I am asking the same questions. And I have a buyer sheet. I've used this for a long, long time. I have a seller sheet I use. And, it has stuff on here that I personalize, like add to my database, things that, wouldn't necessarily be anywhere. And I really encourage, if you make a checklist for something, make it personal. What do you always ask the person? What is something that you always want to know? And I have that on here. And that way I get a basic understanding before I even meet them, usually, of what we're doing, what they're about. I tune into their personality style. How much time do I need to give this person? So I really use this basic form to take notes, write down what they're telling me, and I have everything I need right here. So I probably work with, I was trying to think of the number because it would take hours, I'm sure, but I literally have a checklist for just about every process I do, especially if it involves having to remember something. And some checklists might only have 3 or 4 items on them, but they're important items. That's why I have it. I don't want to miss a step. I don't want to forget something. So I am a huge advocate. Like I said, consistency is king, and I can't tell you how many times I've said that through my life. Um, but there's reasons for it, and part of it is just staying compliant. When I shared that fair housing statistic, we still deal with that stuff out there, and it changes, and that's why we get updates for those things. So I've tried to pack as much as I can into like 15 minutes, and um, I am open to questions. I am happy to give my email to people. If you have a checklist that you think I would benefit from, I would love to get it. And I will share anything with anybody. So um, I'll make sure that my email is given to you today. And um, so, Mike, what do you think?
Oh, Patty, this is really good. I like it. It's one of the areas that a lot of us as agents, we drop the ball, especially if we're a high I personality. This is where a C personality will usually shine because they're very organized. You need both aspects if you want your business to do well in the long run. I think the greatest part of your story is that you help to build that property management business. You put all the checklist forms and systems in place, and
Yes,
it's still cruising along today, a
it is.
decade after you left it. That is a testament to what you set up.
With a lot of those forms, and it was funny, I was looking at one of the rentals not long ago. The criteria I wrote for people just looking at a property is still being used on their website. They've tweaked it, to update it over time with different things that have changed, but it's still there. And because it was great, not because I was great, but because that information, a tenant can look at that and say, I wouldn't qualify, or I would qualify. It's all right there.
Yeah, that's basically the difference between a job and a business, right? If we have a
Right.
job of real estate sales, then we can do it ourselves and we have all the information in our head that we accumulate. But if you want to create a business where other people are involved and they can assist you, then you have to have these systems. And basically, a system is a checklist. It's a way of doing something repeated over and over again.
Right.
Patty brought up a great point that anything that's repeated, you want to write down. But she also said it's a living document, right? It's going to be changed throughout time. She just gave you a great example. So keep that in mind. It's flexible.
Yeah.
Um, Patty, I really like your buyer and seller intake forms to start the process. Every agent should have that. Let me back up one other thing. If you're a solo agent, you need to have these checklists also,
Right.
because this will speed you up in your efficiency of how you can get things done. You won't have to worry that you're missing something. Those buyer and seller intake forms are invaluable. It's how we built our practice up to the point that I sold 113 homes in 1 year. Took 21 listings in 1 month. You cannot take 21 listings in 1 month if you don't have a system and checklists. And what Patty's described is exactly what we are doing. So I just want to back up and support what you've stated there, Patty. Um,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
When I go out of town, I want it known where my contracts are. Where are we in the process? And I leave good information for whoever is going to be covering for me. I want them to know exactly, they need to be confident. They need to, I don't hide anything. They need to know exactly where we are in that process so that they can confidently move it forward. And if something comes up, now, granted, if there's something that I need to address or I need to answer, fine, but it's not going to be, where's the earnest money? I mean, it's going to, everything is going to be known up front where my contract's at. So,
Absolutely. If we talked about the different ways you can use these systems. One, you can leverage with other people. They need to see this. You just talked about having a substitution come in for you. You're on vacation, you got sick, you're in the hospital. Somebody can come in and pick up your file and run. The other thing, again, I want to point out is just yourself. If you're juggling, 50 listings at one time, even 5 or 10 listings at one time, it can get confusing and you can
yeah.
forget how far you've gotten on each file. By having it all checklisted out, you're very confident. You could probably sleep a lot better at
Yeah.
night, knowing that you've covered everything. Well, Patty, I got a question over here that popped in. It's from Blake. It says, "Do you keep your checklists in a paper file folder, so in paper, or other paper documents, or have you moved it all to paperless? Is it all digital now? Which way do you do it today?"
I still have a manila folder with my buyer name and my seller name, and I still have my checklist in there. I usually just staple it to the front, so I know exactly if there's a form I'm missing, or that way it's just right there. Every morning I can go through those files and I can see if I need to follow up on a form. So I still do paper for that because I don't really like to keep a lot of paper around, but that particular thing I like to have in front of me. So yes, I still do have the paper. Once I upload everything electronically and I'm done, then it's all in an electronic file.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Um, I want to point out to everybody as well, we're in a digital world and we're moving into high tech and everything else. But as you all know, I've talked to a lot of top agents over the years. Some are high tech and they moved everything over, but there are others that producing at very high levels that are still doing it manually. They're doing it either in a spreadsheet. If they've gone to the technology, it's just a simple spreadsheet, or they have just the paper inside of a folder. They like the paper. And we're talking people doing dozens, 100. I'm thinking of a solo agent does 150 closings a year, and she's all paper. So whatever's comfortable for you, that's what you need to run.
I like to be able to have it at my fingertips. And, I was feeling for Angela a little bit ago with her computer. And I had shared, my laptop went kaput today and I have to go get another one because I can't be without. But if everything I had on my open files was on that laptop, I'm in a mess. I mean, so I think in the back of my head, I'm still thinking processes, efficiency, systems. I need to know exactly where everything's at, and that still is a piece of paper for me. So, like I said, once I'm done, it all gets uploaded, and then it's out there for 7 years or whatever. But I think in the back of my head, I'm thinking about situations like today where, gee, my laptop decided not to work after 14 years. Okay, that's okay. But all my working files are still right there.
Patty, I want to go back to the very beginning. for somebody who's listening to us and they're thinking, okay, I like the idea. I want to create systems. I want to create checklists, but I just don't know how to do it. Like you've been doing this for decades, Patty. It's
Mhm.
second nature for you. Um, could you describe how somebody could start from scratch? They haven't done this before. They want to get systematized. How do they go about it?
Okay. I think let's just take a transaction. Let's just say um, you're a brand new agent and you're working with your first buyer. Okay. Um, the buyer intake sheet is your first step. You would create a buyer information sheet, and on it would be their name, phone number, email, what are they looking for, bedrooms, baths, garage, square feet, desired areas, price range, are they pre-qualified, just those basic questions. And then there's a notes section that is half a page for me. I'm taking notes as they're talking, as I'm learning about their desires. Does, an outside storage shed keep coming up? Well, I write that down. And then I have good information when I start to work with them on what we're finding. Then I would create a checklist for what forms do I need. So I don't want to have to remember the forms I need. So what forms do I need with this buyer? Okay, I need my buyer broker agreement first, and then I need the real estate forms. I need the disclosure that's required. I need these things, the 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 buyer let me look at my buyer sheet. That's why I have one. I don't want to remember. Estimated cost to buyer. I'm going to have to put that together. Uh, the proof of funds. Okay, we need to know all of that. The just all of those things that are going to need. So I've got my forms, um, and then as we get the contract, that becomes another another checklist. Have I turned over the earnest money? Have I done these things? What steps have I done as far as the contract to meet the contract? Have I scheduled the inspection? I have all of those things in a checklist to make sure I don't miss any contract items because those are important. You don't want to miss those. Those are deadline days. So I have all of that in a checklist. So I think it's just starting from the beginning and don't hesitate to ask people if they have one. Ask people for their checklists. I share mine and I'm happy to share mine. Don't feel like you're just, having to start from nothing. Ask people for help. There's people out there with I still have people say, "Oh, I have a checklist for this." And I'm like, "Let me see it." "Oh, give it to me." Um, so I think ask for help, but start with your very first thing, which is a phone call usually. What are you going to ask and what are you going to get information for?
Great advice. Great advice, Patty. That one little tidbit, that little gem in there that sometimes we forget is to ask if somebody else that we know already has gone through this exercise and could speed us up. Um, it's a nice place to start, but you're going to want to customize it. I
Yes.
remember early in my career, I liked the idea of checklists, and there was an agent who was very successful selling their checklists. And I said, man, I'm going to buy that. And I put up quite a few dollars for it. And I got it, and they were from another state. And I looked at it, I thought, well, this doesn't quite match me, right?
Right,
And so I
right,
thought at first, man, I wasted my money. But then I
right,
realized they were showing me a format that I could follow, and I could just make some slight modifications and pretty quickly it was matching what I do. So as
right.
Patty said, you kind of start and you think in a conveyor belt, what happens from A to Z to get through this process. And you just start writing it down and realize that you'll go back later and you'll make updates and changes. Agreed,
Yeah.
Patty?
Yeah. Even the day of closing, I have a checklist to finish things off. Are there checks I have to do anything with? Um, did I upload the, final documents into the file for my realtor or for my broker? Just simple things just to close it off and be done. And like you said, I don't want to go to bed wondering if I've done something. I really don't. I really depend on my checklist. And if something happens and I've never encountered it before, oh, that's going to go in a checklist. That needs to go on a checklist somewhere. I don't want that to happen again. And so I learned from trial and error sometimes to add something to a checklist. Oh, okay, need to put that on a checklist. So um, I'm a checklist guru, queen person. That's all I can say. I just I can't depend on my memory. I just can't.
And you don't need to with a checklist. Uh, that one other quick idea, and then I've got a question here coming in. Uh, the easiest way to start is just to create some blank pieces of paper, and at the top write the goal of what you want. And then as you think of ideas, you just start adding them, and pretty soon it'll start filling itself
Yeah,
out. So don't feel like you have to do one sit down and throw
no,
the whole thing out. It's going to be a process over time.
yeah.
We've got a question here from Paul. Hey, Paul, good to see you. Can you unmute yourself, Paul, and ask your question?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Mike. Really good seeing you again. It's been a little while. And hey, thank you, Patty, and
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. I just while I was taking a quick look at uh, the one checklist there, and I had a quick question. The last item says wire fraud. Is that it? Is that a disclosure that you have?
Yeah, the wire fraud is a disclosure document that our real estate association has put together that we have for a buyer and we have one for a seller.
Hmm.
And it just reminds everyone that people are out there trying to get your money. And we let them know that you should never send money, send funds, unless you have actual instruction from your title company or me. Now, I'm not going to do that. My title company will. But yes, it is a form that our real estate association put together, one for buyers and one for sellers, talking about don't give your money to people.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because a couple nights ago I was on a another webinar with a title company, and it went through cybersecurity and title theft and riders and all that good stuff. And someone mentioned a disclosure, and it's sad to say I checked my association and my brokerage, and we don't have one. And
Wow.
so I see a couple attorneys have them, so I'm going to make that suggestion, and in the meantime, kind of see if I can use it, maybe R&D one generically.
What
So
state are you in?
New York,
Okay.
I confess.
Okay.
Have you
That's all I'm
asked
going
your
to say.
broker? Have you asked your broker, Paul?
Yes. Yeah. So and they said,
That's
hey,
interesting. And
that's
the broker doesn't have one.
uh,
So yeah, maybe ask the broker to get one. Yeah.
right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a real big thing, especially with AI. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Big deal. Yeah. So it's part of it's additional tool on your tool belt, right?
Yeah. I'm
Yep.
going to give everyone my email address. It's really simple. I I welcome questions, or if you have a thought or you're working on a checklist and you want to collaborate, I'm happy. But it's just Patty, Patty, Brannock, Brannock at Epic, EPIQUE .me, M-E. And and Angela has just put that out there for me. Thank you, Angela. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I love to talk about these things.
That's awesome, Patty. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to reach out to you and ask questions or share a list. And everybody who's here live, congratulations. Patty has given you a wonderful gift in the chat. If you haven't seen it yet, you can click on a couple links to see a few of her checklists. And that's what Paul was just referring to. So be sure you go check that out again to get some ideas on how you could build your checklist. Um, very good. And does anybody else have any other questions that you would like to ask Patty about building out systems and checklists? I'm looking over in chat. I don't see anything. You can also raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question because we want to get you an answer today if possible. And I'm just looking there. Oh, it looks like Angela's got a question for us. Thank you, Angela. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
So, thank you, Patty, for sharing everything today. And I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit about you mentioned going on vacation. And man, how many times have we gone on vacation and it turns out to not be a vacation because we're trying to work? So how would you use your checklists in that situation?
Um, and I think I can actually talk about you because we have been in that situation a couple times. I know I was actually using my checklist on your first cruise when we were working on the buyer buying a property. I was actually using my checklist to make sure that I was, staying on track for that. But on your last one, my brain started to spin, and I've actually been writing down some thoughts on that one, how that could have been handled differently, how to free up your time better. What could another person have done to help that vacation be more of a vacation instead of a working vacation? And I'm working on that system, actually. I've really thought about it since that happened, and you were just tied up a lot. And that we can fix that kind of stuff. So I think you and I will work on maybe that particular thing because we need to be able to go on vacation and not have issues. And if I go on vacation, I want to be able to maybe give you as the backup, here's where I am with everything, and be comfortable stepping in. I think that, I wasn't comfortable with a couple things because I just didn't know where stuff was and where we were at in the process and what
Right.
conversations had happened.
I think in the future then, because I really didn't realize that you were using a checklist and I had my own checklist. So in the future, I need to share when I go on vacation, share my checklist and
Yes.
file, and that's going to make everything go a lot smoother.
Oh yeah.
And
I'll know exactly where you are.
I think that's important to team up with another real estate agent
Hmm.
so that you can actually have some time,
Yeah.
when you
No.
can.
Yeah, it's important that when we're on vacation that it's minimal. I would be more inclined to be on the beach sending you a message going, everything going okay? you know, Instead of the other way around. So, but no, I think that is something that I've really been, you know, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to develop a system because this is more of a system to me as opposed to a checklist. What is the system for when you're on vacation and the person is covering for you? And when I look at that, I don't necessarily have me in there. I have any person. Any person could come in and work that system. And that to me is the critical element right there. Who can come in and work that system? Who can duplicate it? And that's the important element.
I really like this example. Just a minute, Blake, I'll have you ask a question, but I really like this example for a practical one, right? You two are working together. You were covering for the other person. You had checklists, but you were looking at two different checklists, right? And so this is part of the next system for the next time, next reiteration. And the advantage is it will be so much faster for you to make a couple little tweaks because you already have your own systems and just get those systems in alignment rather than you all both are just winging it and you're just hoping the next time is going to be even messier if you don't have a system in place. So by having a system, now you can just make a couple tweaks as opposed to not having a system where now you're starting from scratch again next
Right.
time. So no, the system's not going to be perfect. No, the system will though speed up your communication with whoever you're working with. And through time, you guys will be able to adapt the system and get that real smooth operation going. So I love that example. That was fantastic. Blake, I noticed you had a question. Would you like to unmute? Oh, Angela, do you have a comment before we go to Blake?
Well, and I wanted to share that the transaction that she mentioned on the cruise was the hardest transaction I've had in my 23-year career. So,
Yeah.
um, at no fault to Patty. So
No, it was brutal. I was sitting back here going, oh
Cool. Well, very good. Thank you for sharing that. And Blake, you had a question. Could you unmute yourself and ask?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Patty, you shared with us several checklists like the buyer and the seller intake form and really your listing checklist. But I'm realizing how many other areas this could apply. I'm thinking you could have a marketing checklist, um, just for your own personal marketing, but then also a marketing checklist for your listing.
right.
Is the sign out front, if you got the lockbox on the door, all those things. And
I
you
have
may
that.
have all that, but
Yeah.
that's
I
just
mean, our
great.
company gives us billboards. Did I order the billboard? Am I at that price point? I have, all of that on a checklist also. And I want to make sure that everything that my seller is entitled to, I get them, you know. I don't want to miss any of that. And I have on my calendar what day my sign goes up and I need to put the rider on and yeah, all that stuff. You're absolutely right. You can almost go there's no limit to what you can I call it like downloading off the brain. As much as I can keep off of my head, I'm a happier person, you know? I don't have to sit around wondering, did I do that? Just download your brain, get it on a piece of paper. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Marketing is a huge element.
Good point. Good point. Looks like we got another question coming in. Paul, if you could unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, thanks. More of an observation. I recall earlier in my career, I had a rudimentary checklist, and it was funny because one of the requirements, it's probably similar in a lot of states, is that the every home has to have a smoke and carbon monoxide detector. So early in my career, it kind of was, I hate to use the word, assumed that the seller would have functional smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. But what would happen is you get toward the closing and you have the inspection, and then we have to rush around, buy them, install them, who's going to install them, the house is vacant, whatever, the seller's out of town. So it's kind of scramble. And that's like one of the worst feelings. It's again, to everyone's point, it's a detail, right? It may be a small detail, but it's a very important detail. And basically just by having on your checklist, when you're on a listing appointment, you check it and then you advise the seller client right away, hey, right now, this doesn't work. You need one here, you need one here, do this right away, ASAP. And you kind of give them a list, a to-do list, and you get that out of the way so that before the inspections roll around, boom, that's one less thing that's on the report, right? One less thing to worry about. And I did the same thing recently on another listing where I'm just going to assume that there's going to be all kinds of maybe financing from the buyers, right, including FHA. So I go through and I actually have a checklist. If it's financed through FHA, I'm specifically really looking for broken or missing handrails, cracked glass, chipping and peeling paint, and I did that on the listing. It had a garage, and I just said, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just take care of this right now. It doesn't have to be a Picasso. You just have to eliminate the chipping and peeling paint. And sure enough, the offer that they accepted was FHA financed. And I met with the appraiser, this was actually last week, and they said, oh, this is good. We didn't see any. He just said we didn't see any chipping or peeling paint on the house or the garage. And I just smiled. I'm like, oh, that's good. So it's very
No, Paul,
Mm-hmm.
important. And
you're
just
absolutely right. And
yeah,
I
it makes your life easier.
a
Yeah.
checklist that I give my sellers to get their house ready.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. No,
Excellent.
I love that. And here, cameras are a big deal. We have to disclose rings and, are there cameras at the house, inside, outside? All that has to be disclosed, and you don't want to forget those things. Those are on a checklist to make sure we have that information and that we put it in our listings. So
Great points. I think what you've brought up is that a checklist can help you provide a higher level of service to your clients. right? Keeping them in tune with what they need to do before it becomes an issue. That's what Paul was just talking about. And a checklist will help make sure that you do that each and every time. We have hundreds of things that are happening, actions that are occurring during a transaction. It's hard to keep that all straight. Maybe you can pull it off if you have one client at a time. Once you get two or three or four or five, it becomes very difficult if you don't have a system that you can reference to make sure that things aren't falling through the cracks. Um, and that idea you can add to your system is a preventative or a forward thinking idea of, hey, I need to let my client know a week before
Yeah.
the inspection what they need to do to prepare for it. It's a good idea. It's a great
Yeah.
one.
I love that.
Cool. All right. Does anyone have any more questions before we wrap up? These were great questions we've had so far. All right, cool.
I've loved everyone's input. I mean, this is really fun. And I love talking about this stuff. I mean, because it
Yeah.
works.
Well, Patty, we've enjoyed listening to you. You are an expert in the field, and we really appreciate you coming in and chatting. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge today.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime.
Thank you, Patty. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. You can watch, we're trying to record this. Hopefully, if it happens, we'll have a replay for you. We put that up on our YouTube channel. You can find it at Rams Agents Talk Real Estate. By the way, this presentation was sponsored by Rams Agents at Epic Realty. If you want to learn more about us, go back to the person who invited you to the meeting. And be sure to watch out for our next Rams Agents Talk Real Estate presentation. Everyone, again, thank you for being here and bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.